Hey, what's up, y'all? This is Jeff. Now that we've entered the new year, I figured it'd be a good video to be able to summarize all the side projects that I worked on in 2023. Personally, I think it's always good to be able to summarize the things you worked on and be able to get a clean slate and just be able to reflect on all the things that we personally accomplished and all the things that succeeded and all the things that failed. And so, although some of y'all may know I do this professionally, I still love programming a ton. And whenever I have time, I like to be able to spin up side projects, and essentially coding to me is kind of like my video games whenever I get a chance to be able to work on side projects. And so I figured I'd be able to talk about these a little bit, hopefully give you some motivation and also some fresh ideas if and some concepts to be able to get the new year started right and be able to add to and think about what we're going to work on in this coming year. And so before I start and talk about my projects, I wanted to lay down a couple kind of like guidelines that I always go after when I work on projects, right? First of all, I want to only talk about what I did personally, right? On the side, I don't want to talk about work because at work I actually do something completely different. At work, I do way more large scale stuff, and day in and day out, as I'm becoming more and more senior each day, I actually do less and less coding. And on my personal projects, I go the complete opposite direction and I actually try to build out things that is maintainable, one, for a single person. And also I continue to try to make a tech stack and infrastructure for myself that I can easily spin up projects and be able to improve my ideas and work on and focus on the core ideas rather than the 20 other things that surround it, such as like authenticating your app and security, right? How you're hosting, that kind of thing, right? And so I go the opposite direction just mainly because I figured that that works a little bit better for myself. And a secondary thing that I want to talk about here is that you'll notice that as I work on all my projects, I never, even if projects don't fall through, I never think they're a waste of time, mainly because I always have a sub goals for each of my projects. And of course, my main goal is to be able to get my concept out there, but my sub goal for myself is always to be able to think of this as a building block. Like each and everything that I learn is just another building block to the next thing. And so if I figure out a great backend solution, a great backend hosting solution, I want that concept to be able to carry on to my next project and make it just that much easier for me to be able to get it up and going and get things started, right? And so I want to try to remove that barrier as much as possible. And that's why I think for me personally, no project is a bad project, because I feel like I always get something out of it, whether that's being able to successfully launch a product or just to be able to improve my tech skills and be better prepared for the next project. Okay, so I'm going to start this off. So for the first 3 months of the last year, I actually had a real estate idea. As some of you know, I do a lot of real estate on the side, and one idea that I had that's always been a barrier for myself, both as someone that's rented apartments and someone that's looking in the real estate market, is that it's really hard to be able to distinguish the pricing and how a market fluctuates in the sub markets, in the neighborhoods, in a larger market. So one example that I like to use is like, I live in San Francisco, right? San Francisco has 20 different neighborhoods, if not more, tons of different neighborhoods, like microclimates, everything. There's so many concepts, and scale that out to like other cities like New York, other large cities, and each and every market, each and every neighborhood has a fluctuating rent. And just being able to see those differences, I think, is the core value, to be able to find like a really great value when you're as a renter, being able to find a great value place to live, right? Being able to see those differences, and then as someone that's buying, that's that extra it factor that makes your property, in my opinion, successful or not. And so I went after trying to build this out. The tech that I used React on the front end to do all my UI kind of stuff, Material UI just to simplify my styling, that kind of stuff, and then TypeScript all around, including Node.js on the back end. And then this was all deployed on AWS. As I mentioned earlier, one thing that I'm going after is simplicity, being able to bring this project up quickly. And so I dabbled on technologies like AWS Amplify to host my front end. Wanted to try that out and found it just extremely simplified. Also helped with my authentication needs. and just had a lot of great connectors that simplified the overall process of having a functional front end. And on the back end, I actually just went with AWS Lambda, having a Lambda serverless function to maintain my back end, just to be able to bring it up quickly. And then all I needed was just API endpoints. And so Lambda served as a great functionality for that, and it reduced my complexity quite a bit overall, just being able to connect that up to my Amplify front end. All those things, both those products provided me my routing, my scalability if I ever get to that point, but more importantly, gave me a simple look and kind of framework to be able to just consistently work, deploy my code out, have my dev and prod stacks. One thing that I actually learned that I think is kind of helpful here, that's outside of the coding realm, is that AWS actually gives out free credits when you make a new account. So I made a new account, got $250, and they actually gave it to me twice for some reason. And so I got it twice, $500, maintained all my deployment fees for the rest of the year. Great little inside tip, I guess, that they have that I guess a lot of people don't know about. And then the difficult parts of this product and this platform that I was trying to create was that data was just incredibly hard to get for real estate. MLS is like kind of the large, I guess, big brother of real estate in the US. And so I didn't know this, but each and every state actually has its own kind of MLS holding and, I don't know, gate to get past. And a lot of the data that you want is actually locked down by having and requiring like a real estate license in that state. And so I went the opposite direction and just decided to scrape it, to web scrape it. And I built out a lot of great concepts for scraping Craigslist, for example, as well as Zillow. And in secondary, Zillow did offer some of the data publicly, but it wasn't as live as I wanted it to be, and it wasn't as fine-tuned. And so that's essentially what I did, was to go after scraping. I used both a mix of libraries and also creating my own scraping. And finally, that idea essentially landed there. I used it for my own personal use. I thought about the scalability of it and how it can scale. I first started with like the markets that I'm familiar with, right? And then scaling that out to all the other markets just didn't seem very feasible at that point. And that's kind of where that idea ended. Okay, so for the next 3 months, like most folks, actually got really deep into AI. However, maybe I'm a weird person here, but got into OpenAI's product called DALL-E instead of ChatGPT, which is an AI image generator that you can use with text generations and also use existing images to generate new images. Just really interested in the concept overall and how this thing worked, and just try to reverse engineer the idea. Advanced concepts that I dove into was being able to generate, instead of generating a new image based on an existing image, was actually adding into expanding an existing image. For example, if you generate a door to a building, right? You can use that image to actually generate the rest of the building, and then use that image to generate like the background of that building. And so that's essentially what I was trying to do. Actually ended up making quite a bit of art out of this just for fun, and learned quite a bit about this. And I figured that I can try to sell some of my art. And I ran into being able to use print on demand to print off my artwork. And this is kind of where I stumbled on drop shipping, just kind of like out of the fly without even putting a word to it. I basically created my own drop shipping product and ins and outs of how that works, and hosting my own e-commerce site. Once I stumbled upon that, honestly, the idea kind of turned me off quite a bit. I realized that personally for myself, I enjoyed making the art and understanding how the AI works. But as some of y'all know, right, drop shipping, I'm not saying it doesn't work, but if you dive really deep into it, you start seeing all the courses, and it definitely is kind of like a get rich quick kind of scheme in some regards. And it is definitely a very gray area industry that definitely I didn't really think was something that I was interested in and very feasible, right, for myself. But I did run a complete e-commerce store, and so I got a lot of great learning out of this. I basically played the Etsy e-commerce game and learned SEO, ran marketing campaigns, learned how to like title things for search, how to get my product out, and just like out of nowhere fell into the rabbit hole of like owning an e-commerce store out of nowhere. And so that was great. Learned how like demand versus like printing your stuff in bulk, that kind of thing, and then the different profit margins. So great little exercise that I did that I didn't think I was going to do, but definitely learned a lot out of it, and definitely was my first kind of dabble deep into some of the OpenAI products. Okay, so this leads me to my 3 months after that. This is kind of like the summertime at this point, summer to fall. And this is when I started my YouTube channels. And as some of y'all can see clearly, like I don't know anything about YouTube. This is all new to me. You watch some of my earlier videos, it's all done through research. I was like making videos on Movie Maker or iMovie at that earlier on. And one thing that I actually realized as I've been doing research on how to make videos and YouTube in general is that most creators are actually short form content creators. Like the ratio is way skewed. There's way more short form content creators, and that makes sense because there's way more folks trying to make like TikToks and YouTube shorts. And when I dabbled into it, I actually have a couple shorts on this channel, and they were created by AI. I found a product that essentially takes ChatGPT, analyzes the transcripts for each and every for a video, and then it can find like the highlights of the video, and then of course use code to clip that video and then make like a YouTube short for it. And so right off the bat, I noticed that this concept didn't quite work well for action videos, like moving targets, for example. It works great for stand still talking, like how I make my videos, or like a podcast video. But for like football, for example, being able to follow the ball from, pass to pass, for example, didn't quite work as well. And so that's what I went after to do. I went after to do that, and I used like football games, college football games, and I clipped using the previous tech stack that I was using back in January, plus of course all the enhancements and the ChatGPT API. I clipped football videos to create shorts, and I ended up clipping like hundreds of these shorts and actually made a YouTube channel for the shorts. And it actually got quite a bit of traction, thousands of views for videos. But unfortunately for myself, short form content just wasn't quite that interesting to me, and I just didn't really want to do that, and I figured that my focus could be better elsewhere. But learned a ton, right? When you start diving into these concepts, one thing that I dived into was deep learning. The ball, for example, isn't always in frame in a football game. It's not always in the middle of the frame. And so there's a concept that you need to use essentially deep learning to be able to follow the football, to always keep it in frame for your clipped video, to make it, really sharp and really a kind of a clean video as a short. If not, if you just clip it in the middle, right? Like sometimes like the main character of the game goes out of frame, that kind of thing. And so that's kind of why I dove into. As I mentioned, I used a lot of the old tech stack that I had. And so working in TypeScript, JS, that kind of stuff, a lot of the ported over deep learning libraries just wasn't, it was buggy, had some of its own quirky issues. And I realized that having this in Python is much better. So that's when I started diving into hosting my own Docker stack with my own deep learning stack, and then being able to be able to analyze these videos, and then be able to do that, be able to clip it with Python instead, which seemed to be a much cleaner setup than trying to do this in TypeScript. That's kind of where I ended. Another thing is that throughout the process, I actually scrapped my UI altogether. I needed a place to be able to visually see my videos back. And I didn't want it to be opening up my files. And of course, because I was doing this in a Docker container, that's the connector back to your local host. There's some difficulties there. So one thing that I went with was just uploading it straight to the Dropbox API and using Dropbox as my UI. That seemed to be great. My last 3 months, I actually didn't do quite as much programming as I liked, mainly because work picked up quite a bit and I had some really urgent projects at work. But on top of that, so did my YouTube channel, right? As I mentioned, this is like completely new to me. And so I wanted to focus a little bit more on the video creation part. I moved from using iMovie to edit my videos to using Final Cut Pro. Then did a bunch of research on audio, which my audio still essentially kind of sucks for most of my videos. And then on top of that, I actually started my first Airbnb. And so a lot of my focus was on that as well, on my free time. And I learned everything from like what kind of linens you have to pick, what kind of furniture would work well, the cleaning process, and finally got like my first guest in and hosted my first guest. So that's been it's been really busy for the last 3 months, and of course like the holidays, that kind of stuff, right? All right, so that's essentially it. First, I want to say thank you for an amazing 2023. the YouTube was a big part of it. I got a really lot of great insight from all the comments and the folks that subbed in, and I appreciate all of you a lot. And one takeaway that I have from 2023 is, although it's been a difficult year and hard for a lot of folks, right, including myself, sometimes I just want to be able to take a step back and just remember how grateful I am to be able to do what I love every single day and be able to continue to code. I think even if I didn't have to do this for a job, I think this is something that I would just do on the side just because I enjoy it so much. And being able to learn, being able to dabble on new tech, being able to sharpen my tool set every single day is just the fun part of it, right? And I think I'm in no rush to change how I go about my day to day at this point in terms of, like, you know, my programming route and what I want to learn. And I think next year that's going to be one of my main goals as well, is just to continue to learn what I want to learn, continue to just get better, and just hopefully have the time to be able to continue to work on side projects whenever I can. Last thing is, I would love to be able to hear actually what you worked on, right? Love to hear some good ideas that you have, things that you want to work on. If not, I'll talk to you on the next one. Latest.